Hey everybody, welcome to this is our live webinar. My name is Adam Ringler. As always, I'm a strength and conditioning coach. I've been a sports scientist all of my professional career, and I want to bring some of these insights to you, right? The insights that are coming from high performance, elite level sport. And that's what I'm trying to distill and give you some lessons as far as how do you take what the very best in the world is doing and apply it to your own practice. So today I'm going to jump into a bunch of different content, but it's going to center all around how to optimize and improve your sleep. Something that we all struggle with, something that we need to actually work on. So we're going to step into that topic, and it's often overlooked, but it's incredibly impactful. Right? How screens and late night device use can chip away at athlete recovery, sometimes without any of us even really noticing, without any immediate awareness. And it might seem like just a late night scroll on TikTok or a quick video before bed. But for high performing athletes like you and I, that screen time can have a ripple effect into our sleep quality, our heart rate variability, hormonal balance, and yes, even skill execution the next day. So over the next maybe hour, 45 minutes, something like that, we'll peel back a lot of the layers of this problem. We'll explore both the psychological and physiological mechanisms at play and provide some real world strategies that coaches and athletes can use right away, right? I'm not talking theory, I'm not talking concepts, I'm getting into the weeds as far as what you can apply to make your sleep better. And I'm also not talking about overnight fixes or gimmicks, but thoughtful, science-backed habits built for sustained performance and resilience. So we're going to get all into that. But first, I got to drop a couple different things here. My name's Adam Ringler. I've shared it before. You're following this YouTube channel. If you just discovered this page, I need you to like, subscribe, hit the notification for our channel. This is what I do. I bring sport, science, and strength conditioning material to your device, right to your eyes. So sign up today. I would love for you to be a part of our channel. Let's get into this topic, right? We have to set the stage. Imagine it's been maybe a long practice day, right? And it's 6 p.m., right? You had a court session and it just concluded, right? And now you have an academic obligation or team meetings. You head back to your dorm or your hotel room. You're tired, but not quite sleepy yet. You open your laptop or your phone, you scroll for a few things, maybe you watch a short highlight video, and before you know it, it's 10 or 11 p.m., right? Then you tell yourself, like we all do, the lie that we tell ourselves, I'll just turn it off after the next video. I'll scroll a little bit more, I'll watch this next clip, and then I'll turn it off. But that light, that engagement, it signals to your brain, hey, it's daytime. That one small decision tonight ripples across your entire circadian rhythm. And likely tomorrow's sprint, tomorrow's recovery, and that night afterwards is affected. Athletes train hard. They push boundaries in practices. They travel across time zones. Listen, I do it all the time. And they stack early morning sessions day after day, night after night, week after week. They demand excellence. Yet the very thing that's supposed to help them wind down, maybe their phones or their devices and the familiarity of their social media, can actually unwind their physiology in so many unexpected ways. And coaches might see slower reaction times, less consistent free throws. Maybe the team mood dips. Athletes tell me this all the time, that they feel stressed without actually knowing why. And performance measures actually show it. You might wear a device, HRV drops, slow wave sleep shrinks, sleep latency stretches out. This isn't about blaming technology. It's about how our biology interprets the blue glow and how small habits each evening compound over weeks and months and across season. So here's what we're going to unpack. First, we'll unpack the science, how eyes sense light, how melatonin works, how deep sleep matters, how the autonomic nervous system, right, how that function get us to our recovery baseline. Then we'll move to maybe applied solutions. We'll start talking about, right, applied solutions to these things. We will get into starting to dive deep into maybe strategies, things like blue light blocking glasses, and then using device features native to iOS and Android like Night Shift and Flux. We'll dive into supplement support so your biology isn't fighting every instinct against us, right? And we'll finish with maybe wrapping everything up into a consistent athlete routine that you can apply, practical steps for implementation. So why am I spending this time on sleep and light? Because sleep isn't downtime. It's fundamental time. It's when the body rebuilds, the memory consolidates, neural circuits rewire. It's when the parasympathetic system resets the stress response, when growth hormone surges, and when metabolic process restores, glycogen and other structures. When light is flooding into our eyes, right, whether it's at nighttime or daytime, oftentimes what we see is fragmented sleep. An athlete is essentially training on a deficit in recovery. Their mental sharpness and physiology and even their physiological readiness, that all deteriorates. That slow leak might not even show up in a single box score, but it definitely shows up in 2 or 3 weeks down the road of practices, at peak workloads, or maybe even during conference tournaments or NCAA March Madness, or certainly it shows up under travel fatigue. Now listen, I worked with a Division I basketball player specifically about her sleep routines. And she had a strong workload too, right? She developed really disciplined habits. But during road games, she would often lose deep sleep. And she felt sluggish in late night film sessions. And it turned out she was watching streaming shows from her phone before bed every night on the road. Nothing extreme, but that light actually delayed her deep sleep. And it maybe even costed her 30 to 45 minutes of deep sleep every single night. Now this compounds over time. It adds up. It presents as a pronounced fog by week's end. So we had to adjust her wind down protocol, limit some screen time usage after 9 p.m. And we layered it with some blue light blocking interventions. Within days, her sleep efficiency climbed back to baseline levels. She reported feeling great again, just like her old self. And so did her HRV metrics. That's physiology at play. That's sleep at play. That's what you're going to get in this video. Clear science, real notion about how this impacts recovery, and specific tools that you can start using right now. Not necessarily complexity, just physiology and practicality aligned. And by the time you finish this video, you're going to walk away with some knowledge on how to talk about light with athletes, how to build wind down routines, and how to turn sleep from a victim of late night tech to a core partner in performance strategy. So if you're watching live, right, maybe you drop into the chat here. But if you're watching a replay of this or anything like that, this is where you can start to fold in some of what you learn from this recording into your practice. And just know you can always pause and reflect, right, on any of the concepts of this video. Come back to this video in time and rewatch it and apply something new weeks down the road, a month down the road, right? This is a step-by-step process to improving your sleep. So let's get started with this. Before I jump in any further to what I'm going to talk about, I need to plug a couple different things. Number one, you can find my Instagram. I'm at Adam Ringler, right? Join us, follow. I share all of our content here. I also share a lot of the behind the scenes actions of what I get into. So I would love for you to jump in and follow our Instagram as well. If you're like, Coach, I'm not an Instagram person, I totally get it. Head over to my website. It's right here. It's adamringler.com. You can sign up whether you're a former Athlete Society member or just subscribe to our blog posts. You can find all the information at that website as well. So we need to talk about the effects of screen time. And I think it's important to end up going in a deep dive of how screen time and blue light actually affects our physiology. So let's explore what screen time in the evening actually does and why it matters so much for athletes who need to perform at their very best. Most people assume that scrolling Instagram or catching up on emails just delays the start of their bedtime. And that's true, sure, right? But what's less obvious is how that delay actually shifts the entire biological system. See, blue light at night shifts your circadian rhythm. Every evening, your brain expects darkness to release melatonin. And instead, it sees bright lights. It thinks it's daytime. It's looking up and the sun's out, but it's really not. It's nighttime. So melatonin release stalls, and instead of winding down, your physiology stays in gear. It stays awake. That single shift inflates your wake period in bed. So your sleep latency balloons. And when you finally drift off, your deep sleep and REM phases shorten or even fragment. So for athletes who actually depend on slow wave sleep for muscle repair or memory consolidation, that's not trivial, meaningless stuff. That really matters. So imagine missing key recovery windows while you're thinking that you've had a full night of rest. That just straight up sucks. Heart rate variability, HRV, also falters. HRV measures the subtle ebb and flow between heartbeats, highlighting how well present the parasympathetic rest and digest system is. It's a strong recovery indicator. Screens really reduce that HRV. It blunts HRV peaks, turning the overnight window into more sympathetic dominant stress mode, even during periods of rest. Performance coaches, sports scientists, right? We have all the literature that shows that even moderate sleep delays, 30 to 60 minutes, correlate with reaction time slowdowns in agility drills, declines in peak anaerobic power, and reduced mental sharpness. We're talking tenths of a second shifts that in critical game situations can make the difference between a steal and a blown coverage. I'd like you to imagine, right? Follow along with me here. An athlete whose evening routine includes that last set of emails or working on a paper or training analysis or maybe watching highlights. It's a mindset of actual productivity. But what they get is an internal body clock delay of 20 to 45 minutes. The next morning, sleep inertia lingers. That cognitive tempo is off. Opponent reads a play before they do. In accumulation of this noise undermines performance at massive scale. Let's layer in long travel, right? A reality of NCAA men's and women's basketball. And this means, cross-country trips that adapting to new and different time zones. The first night, screen lit up as soon as your room lights dim. And that's telling the brain to reset on a land jet, right? Yet no pilot or coach would ever endorse last-second instructions that would wreak havoc on ground control. But we do it so routinely with our devices and screens. So travel wariness doubles, right? One, from the time zone change, but secondly, from the light-driven circadian delay. And it's not just performance, it's recovery capacity. Sleep fragmentation limits growth hormone release. Weakened immune function enters. Gastrointestinal patterns shift. All of these things become data points on athlete readiness platforms, but also wreak havoc on athlete physiology. Now, wearable metrics report the truth. Even if the athlete feels fine, HRV curves typically flatten. The readiness scores dips. Wellness checks registers fatigue. The system piece that connects all of these things, right, that connects the screen behavior more than what coaches often hear and see. So consider maybe the cognitive side of all of this, of screen usage, things like this. We have REM, we have emotional regulation erodes, we have pregame anxiety, maybe flares up, mental toughness cracks more easily, deep sleep declines, narrows the gap between intent and execution. So athletes often report less confidence in pressure moments. And yes, even decision time slows down. These are all real world effects of what happens when our sleep, deep sleep, and REM all are blunted and decreased. Then there's the whole feedback cycle. Tired athletes might even reach for caffeine or late night habits to boost their focus, right? They still have papers due when they're student athletes and they're competing in the NCAA. So now when screens disrupt sleep, reliance on external aids rise. Coffee at midnight, energy gels before bed, or social reassurance from team chat. All of this amplifies more sleep dispersion. I'll share an example. One time, a guards professor overlap led to late night messaging and increased screen time. So she'd fall asleep at midnight instead of 10 p.m. Might miss the first whole REM cycle and perform fine on sort of mechanical drills during the next morning shoot around, but would often struggle late in games when those split seconds reads actually mattered. So again, what did I suggest? I suggested we pull maybe the nighttime device protocols, right? We introduced some screen dimming. We scheduled dedicated review windows, and we tracked the change. We also introduced something I'll talk about later in this video, which is blue light blocking glasses, to actually decrease the likelihood of those blue light penetrating into our eyes. And we'll talk a lot more about that. And within a week, her 3-point decision load improved, right? The late game reads sharpened, and she described having that slow-mo clarity that she once had during fast breaks. And for many coaches, screen time feels normal. But once you start to link it to deep sleep reduction, HRV drops, and mental performance blips, it becomes a leaky faucet. And that water doesn't ever just gush out, but over time that damage adds up. And it ultimately affects our mood, makes us a little bit more angry, and it decreases our performance over time. Now, in addition, why don't we just say, hey, don't use your phones at night? Instead, we say use them smartly, intelligently. Know that your screens after dark aren't just blue. They're stress signals to your body. And when you pump stress signals at bedtime, performance isn't spared. So next time that you're reaching for your device in the evening, we have to consider what actually reaching for that device and loading it up in front of our eyes, what it actually does on our physiological systems. The next thing I'm going to talk about here is sort of that physiological hormone disruption that follows, right? And from there, what we're going to end up diving into in a little bit more greater detail is what we can actually do about it. Because framing problems clearly is the first step, certainly. But we actually have to do something to solve them, right? That's the big disconnect a lot of times with this. It's great to have the information, but hey, coach, hey, Adam, what the hell do I do about it? I don't want to just know it. I want to actually have interventions. I'm going to talk a lot about what we can do to actually help our student athletes, right? From a physical strength, but also from biological awareness. And we need to talk about where the screen usage, where we can actually intervene in these things to develop more manageable parts of what should be a complete performance plan. So let's get into discussing maybe the disruption of hormones in the body. And then once again, just to pause here, if you followed along thus far, I do want to share a couple of different things. So looking over at our YouTube analytics, and right now, we got to be able to pump some of these numbers up. We've been talking about sleep. We've been talking about the Former Athlete Society. We've been sharing travel hacks. I want you to like, subscribe, sign up for our YouTube channel. That would just bless my heart. So let's build on what we've just explored and talk about maybe the screen exposure at night and how it disrupts maybe critical hormone function and why that matters deeply for athletes who are chasing peak performance. Now, we already mentioned melatonin, but let's dig a little bit deeper than just melatonin. That natural hormone isn't just the sleep hormone. It's production signals that start a whole cascade of other healthy cycles, from growth hormone release to metabolic processing. And when melatonin gets disrupted by blue light, we begin to scatter that entire sequence, and that body gets stuck in a perpetual lurch between states of alertness and rest. So we also have to consider the pineal gland and how it's tucked deep in the brain, and how it should release melatonin in a nocturnal pattern once light decreases. This has been pre-programmed into our mammalian physiology since the millennia. But when we're on screens or devices, and those devices emit blue light wavelengths at night, they trick your hypothalamic sort of center into delaying that dark code. So what's that mean? What's the translation here? Your brain still thinks it's daylight, well past bedtime. That delayed melatonin release doesn't just shift sleep timing, it suppresses it, even when you're finally laying down and your head hits the pillow. That timing mismatch slows reaction time. It hurts our motor coordination and weakens our mental clarity. And then come morning and during practice, we get to see the physical ramifications of those decisions at that time. And melatonin isn't acting alone. It exists in a concert of cortisol and growth hormone and testosterone and metabolic hormones like insulin. When melatonin is low, cortisol stays high. The normal evening drop doesn't happen. So instead, your body stays in that sympathetic mode, generating cortisol when it should be cooling activity and recharging those systems. Now, that chronic cortisol elevation isn't reactive stress. It's built into that recovery model. It's built into recovery at a hormonal level. And that result is slow repair, compromised immune response, a metabolic inefficiency, which are all performance negatives. Now, you can't always see them in the stat sheet, but they always show up during games and critical moments. Now, pausing here, there's also growth hormone, and it's a surge that happens in the first 90 minutes of slow wave sleep, often referred to as deep sleep. That restorative core of our overnight cycle. When sleep shifts or fragments, that surge gets realigned or maybe even diluted. That means less cellular regeneration and less muscle tissue repair. Post-training wounds and soreness and injuries, things like that. All of those are open longer, so to speak. And so we haven't even mentioned testosterone rhythms yet. And while most sport performance folks focus on the training and the load, these hormones provide foundational support. When evening screen time scrambles them, you're building structure on otherwise really shaky grounds. And since poor sleep blends into metabolism, insulin sensitivity often suffers. So things like blood glucose management misfires. And for athletes, that could mean sluggish energy transitions, right? Reduced fueling efficiency during drills, and even subtle mood or cognition changes mid-training. So what seems like just an inconvenient screen time is actually a frontal assault on the frameworks your body utilizes to rebuild, to energize, and adapt post-workout. Now, to make it a little bit more real for you, I remember working with a team that would travel across the country so frequently. And one of their athletes started tracking not just sleep, but morning cortisol or their stress levels via HRV. And our nights that she ended up watching video on her phone after 9 p.m., those stress readings came in significantly higher at waking. So that heart rate variability dropped sharply too. So she tested removing those devices from her room and hotel rooms when she traveled. She ended up using blue light blocking glasses before bed. And within a few nights, her cortisol or her stress readings on her watch, wearable, dropped 20%. Her HRV improved. And she described feeling calmer and more patient during intense gameplay, right? Steadier under pressure, all because better hormonal terrain built overnight. So here's another way to see it. Sleep isn't just, dark time. It's an anabolic environment. That's where our hormones align, our immune cells regenerate, and our neural circuits get pruned and sorted. When screens push your rhythm 12 to 30 minutes later for weeks at time, all of those systems lose the firing of what they're used to. It's like a missing key cables in a wiring grid. Performance components still switch on, but less efficiently. The greater the disconnect, the greater the performance drag. Now, why does this matter to athletes specifically? Because athletes have a greater demand on their body and their precision of their movements. Their training demands what controlled chaos, controlled stress, with recovery windows timed to match that physiology. So when hormonal systems misfire, everything from fine motor skill to tactical decision making, from endurance to power, from game focus to emotional balance starts feeling dull or delayed. So while screen time might feel harmless, I enjoy a couple TikToks from time to time. Especially, it's dangerous for athletes that rely on their physiology to perform at a really high level. So, in addition to this, right, we've kind of just unpacked all of the ramifications of what those blue light can do to our stress hormones and our body. But in the next section that I'm going to talk about here and just shortly here, we'll take that understanding a little bit further and we'll move it into sort of real human first strategies. How we intentionally shift habits to preserve hormone cycles. How we can guide athletes to screen safe wind down periods. And how we can align daily routines with biology rather than just working against it. Because knowing how far the hormonal ripple goes or the reach is the first step towards actually building systems and more sustainable performance. Now, if you're loving the content thus far, again, this is my obligation. I have to do this. I'm actually handcuffed, signed a contract to do these things. Once again, I would ask you to like, subscribe, hit the notifications to this channel, sign up for it. We are trying to build out a really great resource of information for sports scientists, coaches, and strength and conditioning coaches alike, right? So become a member here. Now, just to kind of dive into a couple of different things, we've already kind of reviewed, if you will, how screens at night delay sleep. right? After sort of the hormone disruption, how the sleep fragments or the disruption and the fragmented deep sleep affects our HRV, how all of this erodes our recovery. The pressing question that I would imagine that most coaches or people watching this video is, hey, that's great that I know that it's actually harmful, but what do coaches and performance professionals actually do about it? Now, it's tempting to just tell athletes, hey, stop using your devices, put them away. But that's not realistic either in our connective age that we live in. Instead, we need smart strategies, tools, habits that actually block the blue light signal at key moments without asking people to maybe abandon the game film review or messaging or communications or academic obligations. So let's maybe walk through some of these layered tactics. I want to start with glasses, right? Then we'll go to maybe screen settings, and finally we'll wrap up with maybe how we can use device-free substitutes and some supplement support as well. So first up is the blue light blocking glasses. Now, these aren't novel by any means, right? Or they're not actually really even gimmicky, although I know, colleagues, when I'm wearing mine, love to, crack jokes about my blue light blocking glasses, right? The jokes are on them. They're actually grounded in optics and physiology. Now, there are models like the Roca and Huberman wind down shades that filter wavelengths under 530 nanometers, right? The range that often is most disruptive to melatonin production. And by wearing them 2 to 3 hours before sleep, athletes can significantly blunt the circadian daytime cue that screens otherwise deliver. Now, it doesn't block every light source, but it shifts enough to bring melatonin onset forward. And what that means is that athletes fall asleep earlier. They slip into deep sleep faster and exhibit smoother HRV curves overnight without feeling sedated. Now, just as a heads up, I wear mine every single night. Once 7 p.m. hits, I'm throwing my blue light blocking orange hue glasses on, and it is just magical what it has done for my sleep. Now, for implementation, timing is key. So putting the glasses on roughly 90 to 120 minutes before target bedtime and keeping them on, right? Even until lights are out, even if you're reading on a tablet or chatting with your teammates, or in my case, my wife, that critical idea is to create a buffer zone, a transitional light environment that mimics dusk. And this may feel odd. Right now in Colorado, 7 p.m., it's still light outside. I can see it. But I'm shifting my physiology and my body into starting to wind down as the later evening progresses. And it might even feel a little bit silly because lens shades, right? The color of them, the orange hue. Sometimes people, I remember I've been called Bono, I've been called Post Malone, but all of this in jest. It's not a rock star lifestyle to wear different colored lens glasses, right? I'm trying to actually hack my sleep. So whether that's a rock star or Bono or Post Malone or whoever, right, doesn't matter to me. Now, anecdotally, athletes that are wearing these lenses during road trips reported feeling less groggy at wake. And with subjective wind down times dropping 15 to 20 minutes, that's real data. Now, quantitatively, wearing or wearable data like your Whoop or your Oura Ring or, in my case, my Apple Watch, right, showed improvements in HRV and total sleep time, often at times when travel fatigue was at its worst. This isn't marketing fluff. It's an actually tangible physiological shift from blocking targeted light. Now, if glasses aren't an option, or if athletes want a more layered approach, we turn to device settings. So Apple Night Shift is one setting, Android Night Light feature, and third-party tools like Flux dynamically reduce blue and green hues after sunset, leaning displays towards a more warmer hue that doesn't affect those blue light or green lights. This doesn't fully replace the effect of glasses, but when used together, you get sort of 2 layers of defense, one at the light source and one at the receiver, the eye. Now, best sort of results happen when Night Shift or Flux triggers automatically about an hour before bedtime. I know in all of those apps, you can customize it to drop the color temperature below 3000 K for evenings, and that shift makes the green visibly gentler and biologically quieter. So instead of bright light or blue light glow, you get more of an amber or red tinted output. And when users might complain that it looks unusual, studies on sleep latency and subjective alertness have shown meaningful improvements with this shift in pace. Now, when layered with glasses, that effect is even more amplified. You're blocking light twice. You're first at the eye with the glasses and then also at the screen. And this compound filter allows athletes to engage in necessary late night tasks without compromising the circadian signal. It's both practical and elegant. And coaches, setting team-wide device policy around these things or just sharing it as a recommendation can normalize these healthy nighttime routines without demanding extremes from athletes and teams. So beyond devices, we still need non-screened wind down rituals. So simple, human, recoverable pathways. And this might include reading on paper, light stretching in the evenings, journaling, or even guided breathing exercises. These habits honor the body's nocturnal rhythm and avoid sort of reinforcing screen dependency. And if you're working with the team, even suggesting 20 minutes of dedicated non-screen time before bed, preferably under low or warm lighting, can shift athletes' behavior in a very powerful way. Now, I've seen this hold up across teams and other sports programs, right? There's been times where I've seen these teams, instead of doing late night film, they might have a paper review where they're during travel where athletes have to flip through pages instead of their phones after 9 p.m. And the result, while it's a little harder to go in the hotel and print up copies of Scout, early sleepers feel more rested and roommates aren't woken up by scrolling on their devices, right? The collective energy at breakfast improves. These are small steps, but additive across squads and season and weeks and long travel. So in summary, right, this isn't about restricting devices. It's about rephrasing how we use them. And by placing blue blocking glasses and using those and screen dimming and screen-free time in the evening routine, athletes preserve their physiology without giving up connection or prep. It's a shift from turning everything off to using tools that respect our biology. That's really important to know, right? Now, up next, I'm going to talk about how we can layer in some supplement support because even the best routines may need some biochemical reinforcement. So something that I typically, that I stack, I'm going to talk a little bit about magnesium, specifically magnesium glycerate. I'm going to talk about glycerin, L-theanine, and how apigenin can actually support the brain's sleep initiation processes. And they bolster and they improve and upregulate the GABA tone of our body. And it actually slows our mind a little bit. That way, screens may be present, but you're still primed for restorative night of rest, not just staying up and staying plugged into your device. So let's get into that aspect. Again, if you've made it this far, or if you've been shared this video, my name's Adam Ringler. I've been a sports scientist and a strength and conditioning coach all of my life. And I'm bringing this YouTube channel to us, right? To this entire community, because I want to try to take what the very best in the world is doing and applying and share these lessons with you. And that said, if you are a part of watching this video, again, I would love for you to follow along, leave some comments, like these videos, and share them with your friends. Now, let's get into the physiology and some of the supports that supplements can encourage. Now, there are some supplements out there that actually help, right? And that encourage natural sleep, that don't sedate you or put you in bed. One such supplement, and I am not a sponsor, so again, consult with your primary care physician, athletic trainer, team policy, etc. Personally, N of one, I'm a coach, not an NCAA athlete. I like that Portal, which is a sleep supplement, blends that magnesium glycinate, glycinine, L-theanine, and apigenin. And each one of these supports distinct pathways to sleep. So magnesium actually calms neural overdrive. The glycinin lowers core temperature and signals rest in our body. The L-theanine quiets mental chatter that's going on in your head. And the apigenin strengthens GABA receptor signals. And taken around 30 to 60 minutes before bed, this stack coordinates a sympathy of calm without heavy sedation. I love that idea that we can use some biochemical support in a form of a supplement to be able to help enhance our sleep without feeling like we're taking something that sedates us. Now, in college travel situations, right, there's full application of using magnesium and other supplements that allow us to get faster sleep onset or higher perceived sleep quality and improved overnight HRV. Now, sleep trackers actually confirmed a lot of these ingredients that bolster deeper slow wave sleep, that have fewer wake ups and better parasympathetic dominance. And when screens are unavoidable, a supplement, maybe like Portal or those basic ingredients, can actually help buffer the downside and reinforce a more wind down routine. So what have we unpacked in all of this video? Well, we know that late night screens and blue light aren't just annoyances. They're actually performance disruptors. They scramble our hormones and they compress our deep recovery and they jeopardize our readiness of our athletes and teams that we work with. But ultimately, guys, we're not helpless in this. We can block the light with glasses. We can tweak our devices with night shift and flux and screen covers that actually block blue light from the screens, not just only our eyes. We can choose non-screen evenings and support biology with smart supplementation. These layered interventions like this that I'm sharing, that we're talking about in this video, when used consistently, can help athletes transition into rest more naturally. It doesn't force it. You don't need to bury devices at 7 p.m. You just need to respect your own physiology. So try interventions this week. Maybe just, utilizing the glasses or going screen-free 60 minutes before bed. Measure your HRV on a wearable device. Look at your sleep latency or mood even. Win small, then build from there. Now, if you made it this far, I got to say a couple different things. Number one, thank you for spending this time with me, right? You've got tools that you can use tonight, and that's the point. That's the whole reason I do these videos, to make it actionable and tangible and something that you can do. Now, I need you, once again, I need you to hit subscribe for more of these tips and tricks and habits and disciplines and all of this, right? So subscribe for more performance science. Feel free to share which strategy helped you recover better. I would love to read about that in the comments below. And no matter what, right? Share this with a friend, share this with an athlete, share this with a coach, somebody that could get a benefit from improving their sleep. Because I'll be honest with you, not only would I love for you to share this video with somebody that matters to you, but in addition to that, they're going to get the best quality of performance out of their own physiology. And we owe it to our athletes, we owe it to the people that we work with, we owe it to ourselves to really try to bring the best quality of sleep to our own lives and others people's lives so that we can be the best person that we can be for everybody else. So thank you so much. Again, if you want to follow along, this is probably the best area that you can go, adamringler.com. This is where you can sign up to become one of our former Athlete Society members. You can also subscribe to the entire website, both free and paid, so that you get access to some of the private articles, but also that you get advanced notifications for every single article that drops on that page. And we're trying to bring some awesome content to you. So as always, I appreciate every single one of you. Until next time, again, I'm Adam Ringler. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you.